Welcome to the DSPN.
He's given him. Wow, there you go. He was forward.
Oh, a punch up now in midfield. Fraser's involved.
The Devlin Sports Podcast Network.
Super Rugby then. Let's wrap up round 12 and look forward to 13, 14, 15 and 16. Joining me in the studio from Sky Sport is Tony Johnson. And Tony, welcome again.
Hey, Mark.
Now, we're going to do something a little bit different this week. Rather than go through game by game, we're going to actually isolate and separate the 5 New Zealand sides and Moana Pasifika in terms of where they're all sitting on the points table at the moment with 4 rounds to go, the potential of what can happen, because there are still many possibilities, and this is the greatest thing about this competition this year. In the next 4 rounds, there's only 2 teams. The Reds and New South Wales are playing every game. Everyone else gets a bye. It's the way the vagaries and quirks of the draw have worked out. We've got 2 New Zealand teams at the top, Chiefs and Crusaders, and that match in Christchurch this coming weekend, well, you know, it's put the Chiefs in a position they probably don't want to be, and let's start with them because they are top of the table, where getting 1 or 2 and locking in those home semi-finals seemed so sure a couple of weeks ago, yet now because of the loss to the Hurricanes, maybe not so.
Yeah, it's a funny sort of thing that because they weren't playing, the Crusaders could sit back and watch quite a few cards fall in their favour. They now have a game in hand. They haven't lost any ground on the Chiefs at all. In fact, they've closed it up a little bit because of the points differential narrowing for the Chiefs because of their loss to the Hurricanes. So the pressure now on the Chiefs, I think if they want to finish top of the table, this becomes a must-win for them. As you say, that the bye becomes a bit of a factor. I said last week, once you get into the top 6, that your destiny is in your own hands, but not quite when everyone's got to have a week off. And so you got to, as you say, you got to look at what lies ahead. But to me, for the Chiefs, this becomes a really important game because they are away in Christchurch. Then they've got a bye. Then they've got Moana Pasifika and a game in Dunedin against the Highlanders, which form suggests they would be the favourites for those 2 games. But where they're now coming under pressure, not as much as they are coming under pressure in that battle for 1 and 2, the Brumbies have been able to close the gap on them too. And what was looking like a decent gap between 2nd and 3rd has narrowed. And there's a chance for the Brumbies to catch them. So, you know, 1 and 2 I think are going to be important. 1, 2, 3, obviously, home advantage for this, you know, quarterfinal setup that they've got. But you know, this game this weekend just becomes massive for both of these teams.
Yeah, 37 points Chiefs, 37 Crusaders, Brumbies 34. So it's just a win away now, isn't it?
Yeah.
And if the Chiefs happen to go down to Christchurch, lose that game,
then they don't get any points the following week.
That's right, because they got the bye.
Yeah.
The Brumbies are away the Force, and they'll be smarting by losing to the Force. I think it was the second round, wasn't it? 45-42 or something like that. And then the Brumbies have got the Reds, so they got a couple of Aussie teams, and they got a real chance to cement themselves. So, yeah. And their motivation is obviously to come second. So, yeah, this is actually the Chiefs' apple cart. It's a little wobbly. It's just a little wobbly.
Yeah, and look, they were outplayed by the Hurricanes.
Oh, they were.
That was a terrific performance. The Hurricanes, boy, I talk about the bye. They probably wouldn't want the bye this week because they've just got some momentum going. You think about the scalps that they've picked up the last 2 weeks. And that has brought them rocketing into contention. So, you know, do you want to really be sitting down doing nothing this weekend, watching everything else when you're in that sort of form? But yeah, so what it means is that performance means the Chiefs now have to go back, you know, get a few things together. They should have Damien McKenzie back for this game.
That'll be huge.
That will be massive. And, of course, big question mark, who do the Crusaders play at 10?
Yep. And look, and that, you know, I think that is the little asterisk I'll put beside them at the moment, because when you think, I mean, they play all 4 games. I mean, they had their bye, and so they now play all 4 games. And this is how they come. They obviously play the Chiefs there. Then they've got
Waratah's away.
Waratah's away.
Then home to the Highlanders.
Then away
and then away to the Brumbies in the last game.
And that's really tough as well, isn't it?
That could count for a hell of a lot.
Right. But
not just for those 2 teams, but possibly for the Chiefs as well.
But when you're sitting there looking at the Crusaders, that first 5 situation is now crucial for them, isn't it? Because what do you do with James O'Connor? Does he start for you? He's been their closer, and he's been the guy that they've used really well, and he's come on and he's done a great job many games where he's just slowed it down and secured points, hasn't he? But now what do you do with Kamara out? Do you start him? Or do you start Hohepa?
Yeah.
What do you do?
Well, firstly, it's just such a shame for Taha Kemara because he was really finding his feet in Super Rugby, and I think they played it really smartly around him. They didn't ask too much of him, but what he was doing really well. O'Connor's just seemed so comfortable in that closer role, as you put it, to use a baseball term. So they may well look to start Rivers Reihana. Just to see how that works out. I think at some stage they will give.
Did I say Hohepa? Sorry, my bad. Yeah, it was Reihana.
Yeah. But everything else is going pretty well at the Crusaders, and I think they're a team that can probably absorb a loss like that and find a way out of it, because what's going on up front, what's going on outside that number 10, it's looking pretty good for them.
Having said that, Tony, they've lost a couple of games. The second half blew out against the Chiefs, and that was right early in the season, but then they got blown away by MP as well. So, I mean, is there any team that's sitting there that you absolutely lock solid on and go, okay, like in previous years, you go back 3 or 4 years, we'd say the Crusaders. Last year, the Blues looked imperious, didn't they? Is any team in that kind of
It's
position?
a different kind of competition this year, though, because no one can afford to drop their standard by a couple of percentage points, or otherwise you're vulnerable. And teams are finding it, as we've said 2 or 3 times over the past weeks, that teams are finding it very hard to get a winning run going. I don't think anyone's gone past 3, 4 wins in a row. Yeah, so it's just the nature of the competition. You got to bring your A game every single week, which is what makes these final games, these final 3 or 4 rounds, just so fascinating.
Do you still think that the Chiefs and the Crusaders are, odds on, or they are going to be 1 and 2?
I'm not as convinced as I was, simply because of what happened at the weekend.
Right.
With the Chiefs losing that game, the effect that it's had of bringing the Brumbies back into the mix and giving the Crusaders that position where, with the game in hand, really now it is in their hands. If they win everything now, then they know they are going to finish top of the table.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that.
Look, I like it, these equations, and we'll talk about the Blues in a second as well. And I mean, Moana Pasifika in the same situation where you've got destiny in your own hands, and if you win out from here. But let's look at the Hurricanes, though, who, if I'm doing my rankings at the moment, I've got them in 3rd spot, given the fact of what they've done in the last couple of weeks. They went to the Force, they should have won that game, but they've gone to the Brumbies and beaten the Brumbies, which is not an easy place to do. And if you had sat there and looked at that fixture list and gone, okay, so for the Hurricanes to really climb the table here, they're going to have to win in Canberra, and then they're going to have to beat the Chiefs. Not many people would have bet on them going back to back and winning the way that they have won too, which has been so convincing.
Yeah, and I just think that forward pack has given them some go-forward ball, and as long as they've got a bit of that, then Roygaard is such an influential player, and everything else is humming outside him. Once again, we had that midfield combination we talked about last week. Billy Proctor was in a very creative mood. He set up tries for others, but I think it's the combination with him and Higgins. It's just a shame they haven't had more of that this year, but because of injuries they haven't been able to. But boy, having those two together for the run-in, that's going to be huge. Just a shame about Kini Naholo, because I had him very much in the All Black frame.
Last week you were picking him, and and I hope you didn't put the curse on him. I mean, we don't know. The time we're actually recording this, we don't know what is that extent of
No,
that
but it
injury.
didn't look good though, because when something pops like that, and it looked like something popped, without a hand being laid on him, you start to think that that's no minor injury. That's which is a great shame, not only for him but also for the Hurricanes. Mind you, only Ponivai cashed in, didn't he? 4 tries. I mean, most of them were just finishing off jobs, but yeah,
Sullivan, wasn't it? Balin.
Sorry, I beg your pardon.
Yeah, we've both done this, Balin Sullivan. Yeah, so much rugby over the weekend.
Yeah, sorry.
I can see his face. I can see the smile on his face when he got the 3rd one. Was like, what? And then he gets the 4th one as
Sullivan,
well.
beg your pardon.
Yeah, Balin, yeah. So, and look, we saw that with the Crusaders, remember, who had, I can't remember his name, who came on and got 5 tries when he actually...
Becca Springer, yeah.
Yeah, it's happened a couple of times this year where you've just been in the right position. Look, that Hurricane side, as you said, a Blythe, then the Highlanders at home, away the Reds, then home MP. They're going to be looking at winning those home games for a start against 2 teams that they should beat. They've got a real revenge thing going on against Moana Pasifika as well in that game. But from here, have they suddenly become the new dark horse to you? I know that you're talking about the Brumbies and the opportunities that they've got, but that Hurricane side.
They're a team no one will want to play when you get to a playoff match, a sudden death game, that's for sure, because there's so much going on there. As I say, their forwards, don't underestimate the value that they are bringing, because they allow everything else to happen. And that it's still quite a young loose forward trio where you've got Kurifi, you've got Yosei, and of course Peter Luckeye. They're just giving them such tremendous go for it. I think Isaiah Walker-Leawere had a really strong game at the weekend as well. You get Almua fit, and so you've got some really good ball carrying forwards as long as they get their set piece right. And if they can get the set piece right, which they should, then it just creates all those possibilities. So as I say, they're the team that I don't think anyone would fancy playing them. Whether they can get up to the top three, it's probably going to be, they're going to be reliant on other results going their way for that to happen. But I would be, if I was a Hurricanes fan, I would be reasonably confident about their team making the top six on the basis of what we've seen the last 2 weeks. They've just got to continue that. And as I say, it's a bit of a shame that they've got to bye this week.
Yeah.
It's just to stop their momentum. But yeah, it's doable. I think the away game against the Reds, that's a tricky one, because I think the Reds by then they might be scrapping as well. It might be desperate times for them.
2 points separating them on the points table.
But this great scenario that we've got, it was the same at the weekend where
5 or 6 different things could happen all at once.
Yeah, every single game affected the table.
Yeah, something on it. Yeah, and this is what you want, especially as we're closing with 4 rounds to go. Ruben Love at first 5 as well seems to have found his spot, hasn't he?
Yeah, and
he's played bloody well. I just love the controlled kicking. It's almost that rugby league thing where the line's coming up. This is how you negate that. Well, I've always called it offside, but how you negate the rush defence is, chipping over the top or having somebody who's clever enough to put it through that little gap as well.
But here's a guy who's been handled pretty well, and let's not forget that poor Harry Godfrey suffering that injury, because I think they had him earmarked for that number 10 spot. They wanted him to develop. But Ruben Love, who's played a lot of his rugby at fullback at the higher levels, has learned how to read a game. And this often is the case where players come out of the schools, they haven't really learned how to control, how to engineer a game, navigate a game, and so they put them back to fullback and they can see it all in front of them. And then they move them into the 10 jersey and they've got a much better idea. And I think this is what's happening. You're seeing the maturing of them, but without compromising any of that electric capability that he has, and you're just seeing the full range of his game. And as I say, the word I've always used with him is fearless. I just love his approach.
All right, we've got 3 to go. Let's look at the Blues before we do MP. The Blues are in 7th at the moment. They're 22 points. Moana Pasifika are in 24. The Blues from here, their fixture list is away the Drua, then home Moana, then they get the bye, then they go home New South Wales. If they win out, they should be confident of making it. But that game against the Drua, who you did pick a couple of weeks ago, you said they were going to win games. They've just knocked off New South Wales. They've knocked off the Reds. I mean, those are 2 huge scalps, right?
Yeah, and
they'll be eyeing the Blues up going, we can take you guys as well, because it's at home.
Yeah, well, they won Suva.
Yeah.
And that was something that they hadn't been doing. They'd only been winning
they
at
played
Lautoka.
bloody well. I watched
and they
that
did.
game.
Yeah. And once they get a head of steam up, and of course now that they've won a game, brings the excitement factor out. You're probably talking about a pretty big crowd there as well. That will not be an easy game at all. If they can get through that, they were in the top 6 just very briefly.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, until yesterday afternoon. Yeah,
but they're very much in the frame. Moana Pasifika at North Harbour Stadium. That's going to be interesting, because that's potentially another double jeopardy game as well.
What a crowd! I mean, hopefully this is the big crowd that comes to North Harbour to see that game. And look at Moana for the second time have gone back to back. Yeah. And the first time that happened this season was the first time that it had happened. Yeah. So now they've done it again. That must give them so much confidence going down to the Highlanders and winning.
I was going to say the thing about the Blues, just going back to the Blues. Look, it wasn't a perfect performance from them, but it was good enough to beat the Force, and there were some encouraging signs. I think they managed to get their midfield into a bit more play. Both Taili and Rieko Ioane just able to make a few more inroads. Obviously playing with a bit of a makeshift back 3 because of the injuries. I don't know what the status is of Caleb Clark. They would love to have him back, because Tilly is still out for another week or so yet. So I think all things considered, that was a pretty good effort. Bowden Barrett, I have to say, there's a lot of discussion going on about the All Black number 10 jersey. Who's best man for the job? Is it McKenzie? Is it Barrett? I thought Barrett, goal kicking aside, is putting up a pretty strong case for that number 10 jersey. I just think the breadth of his game on Friday night, those kicks out to the wing, the way he was able to weight them perfectly, create opportunities, a couple of great passes as well. To me, if it's just on general play, then he's got his nose in front. But if goal kicking's paramount, then maybe it's Mackenzie. I suppose the big question mark there is, do they bring Geordie Barrett straight back into the mix? He's had a fantastic season for Leinster. If he's in the team goal kicking, then Beauden Barrett's goal kicking doesn't matter quite so much. Yeah.
Moana probably, when you're talking about, the Hurricanes not wanting a bye this week, they're probably in the same boat at the same exactly, aren't they? Because they've just had back-to-back wins as well. And they take the bye, then it's home the Blues, and then away the Chiefs and away the Canes. I don't know whether you could get a harder road to hoe for them to make it, Tony. And look, I'd love to see them, but they, to win those 3 games, again, they're in the position to control their own destiny. If they win them, they're there. But, you're talking about a Chiefs side which now needs points and needs wins, and a Hurricane side in that very final game, which is going to be in that same position again.
Yeah, like all of those teams in the mix, they're going to have to win 2 out of 3, I'm sure. Blues at North Harbour, there'll be so much riding on that. Look, a lot to really like about their performance against the Highlanders. They've never beaten them before. And so to go down and beat them in Dunedin in front of their home fans, that's a terrific performance. That's one that they should be celebrating, and I'm sure they are. Another absolutely incredible game by Ardie Savea. I mean, others around are really stepping up, and the guy that really caught my eye, I thought Chris Arpoa had an absolutely fantastic game. You're not going to miss him on the field, are you? But the way, just the absolute aggression with which he carried the ball, you'd have to think, that this is part of the inspiration of having Ardie Savea in the mix, which makes him the most important.
Raising the bar, mate.
Yeah, the most important signing that they've ever made.
Yeah.
The most important decision that they've probably made since they came into the competition. And, there's so much pride that he brings into the team and the inspiration. But others are lifting as well. Miracle Whailangi, another strong game from him. They've got a really strong carrying loose forward trio. Lalomelo, another one, probably the best game I've ever seen him play. And so, they're fizzing. And the thing about them is that you probably want to be, going into the second half, you want to be 15 points in front, because no lead is safe against the. They're such a strong second half team. And that speaks volumes for their character, for their determination, that instead of flagging, it seems to lift. And once they get momentum going, they are hellishly hard to stop.
That Blues game, as you say, in a couple of weeks. All right, let's wrap it up with the Highlanders then.
Tough draw, though. Tough draw, as you say. Yeah. Away to the Hurricanes and the Chiefs, the last 2. That's.
The Highlanders look done and dusted. And, it's just been, they've been there or thereabouts. They've had some really close games, some really close losses, but it's gone now, isn't it?
Well, they've got a bye.
Mathematically,
then they're away to the Hurricanes and the Crusaders, and then home against the Chiefs. So, I mean, mathematically, mathematically, everyone's still in it. But again, I think it's just, they don't quite have the same depth as the other teams. They're very good, 1 to 15 what they can put on the field, with chucking a few injuries, and it just means 16 to 23. They're not always as strong as the others, but again, they're a team that could still play a part in the makeup, just like the Drua are doing with their ability to beat teams who are in contention.
Yeah.
But it's hard to see them competing now. They really needed to win that game against Moana.
Everything to play for, 4 rounds to go. How good?
Yeah, well, this has been a really good Super Rugby competition,
been so
hasn't
even,
it?
Isn't it? That's the great thing about it. You don't know. Every week you're getting results that you're not picking, and every week you're looking at fixtures, as you say, and you look at the next lot and go, well, they're really crucial. Every one of those games.
Well,
the
first 5 or 6 weeks, it was all about the quality of the rugby, the unpredictability, just the great conditions. Now we're into sort of getting into the depths of the winter, and it's get tough time, really, isn't it?
This is the DSPN.